Hey, it's Brian Wright with the Daily Bee. What am I talking about? Just because you can doesn't mean you should. Hey, it's Brian Wright, and it's funny because I'm a little rugged today. Ran into the gym, and I'm not at my best groomed self, and it kind of goes into what I'm talking about. Today I can get away with because of the nature of the work I did this morning. But here's the thing. Just because you can doesn't mean you should. And what I mean by that, and it's just so many things, we all struggle with this, is that we make commitments in relationships, we make commitments at work, we make commitments all the time that we're going to do stuff. And if they're long-term commitments, the discipline factor tends to wane over time. So we make commitments, we get into it, we're all enthusiastic about it, we like the results we're getting, and this could be personal, it could be professional, it could be a lot of things. But then we get complacent, and then we start to cut the corners. And the other half of the relationship is not questioning us. They're not verbally communicating that. They're dissatisfied with the lack of commitment that's occurring because we're making that decision where we're saying, okay, I can get away with it, so I'm going to do it. Meaning, you show up late. Or you don't show up at all, or you play with your phone instead of giving the person the attention that you used to do, or you don't come in as groomed, or whatever. There's a million and one things we can talk about on this, especially, let's say you're a personal trainer. You're a personal trainer and you tell your client, it's on the board, get started without me. Or you come in and, you smell like shit because you trained the night before and you didn't shower. Or you just show up late and they're waiting for you and they haven't said they're dissatisfied, so you just do it because you can. I've got a million and one ways that we can go about this. I mean, it's teaching group class. It's, you just stick to the system and you don't really pay attention and you just kind of call it out. It's what I call phoning it in. You're there. You're physically there, but you're not engaged. So you're literally just kind of phoning it in and hoping they get it and not really giving a shit. And it's at that point where you got to remind yourself of the value of the relationship. Personally and professionally, everything is an exchange. And if you want to continue to get what you were getting, you want to get that from your relationship, you have to continue to provide the value that you always did. Why would you expect more money? Why would you expect more engagement if you're not providing the same value that you always provided? If you're providing less, shouldn't you be charging less? If you're just not fully there, don't you think that you should either recommit and get back into the swing of things or get yourself out so you stop screwing somebody over? In the business terms, so many times I see this happen where people get complacent, they stop providing that value. And when things are good, it's not an issue, but the minute there's a problem when you need a little bit more or the person needs more and you've been giving less for so long, the negativity builds up and then the relationship just fractures and everybody separates and then it tends to not be the best. And that's when the truth starts to come out. And that's when the amount of time you've been slacking starts to become the person's excuse or reason. It's not even an excuse, it's a valid reason for why they're not working with you anymore. And then that's what they communicate to people. Hey, did you hear about Brian over at Killer Bee? What do you think about him? Well, you know what? He actually showed up late for like 6 months and he fucked me out of my money. I don't want anyone to ever say that. I got to show up early and I got to stay late and I got to go above and beyond because I never want to have that. I'm going to have it. There's going to be some person that I can't make happy no matter what I do. And that's why it's really important that when you do decide to work with people, that you work with the right people. Because working with the wrong person, you can never satisfy them and they're always going to end up fucking you eventually. So be careful about who you choose to work with. But you always have to understand the value that you're providing. And when I was young and arrogant and entitled and stupid, when people would leave because I was lacking, I would blame it on them. Oh, they can't handle it. They're not committed. And I would come up with excuses to justify my poor behavior. I knew that my behavior was poor. But I didn't want to admit it. Forget about to the client, to myself. I didn't want to admit it. I just wanted to be like, well, whatever, it is what it is. And I'm expecting people to deal just because, and that's just bullshit. You should never be in a just because situation. People should be committing to you for very specific value-driven reasons, not because you did something once, not because you think you're special, because then you're in that entitlement range. Nobody owes us anything except in exchange for what we provide. So when your clients decide to leave instead of saying they can't hack it, take a look at yourself and be honest. Were you providing inconsistent value? Were you getting them the results that they needed? Or did they have to leave because you're not fulfilling the commitment that you agreed to in the first place? And forget about clients, just looking on a personal level. Do you have relationships with other people that fell apart because you just started taking too much and stopped giving? It happens. Happens every day. Happens all the time. I mean, it's happened throughout my whole life. I can pinpoint key points where I was taking advantage of relationships just because I could, or I thought I could. But then in time, I couldn't, and everything fractured. And when I was ignorant and arrogant, I blamed it on them, when in truth, it was all my fault. So much easier when you just take the blame and then you look at it analytically instead of trying to judge the other side of the relationship inappropriately, too harshly, you trying to justify things by passing it all off and just not shouldering the blame, figuring out why, making yourself better. Do you understand that? You have to be analytical enough and confident enough to be able to recognize your shortcomings. And that's why it's really important to understand just because you can, it doesn't mean you should do a lot of the things that you do. I'm not even just saying you, it's we, all of us. We're all in that position. You know, it's there's so many sayings, quotes, whatever, but it's really who are you when you're alone that really is who you are. Are you disciplined only when the camera's on, only when there's an audience, or are you actually disciplined? Are you good at what you do only when you have to be, or are you good at what you do all the time because you choose to be? It's the choices that we make that make it all work. So the choices we make have to be based upon the value that we provide to the relationships that we have. If you follow the Hive podcast from my gym, Killer B, if you go to thehivecast.com, I have a lot of interviews with entrepreneurs and people within the gym. And one of the key factors that we constantly hit, anyone I've ever dealt with through anything I've ever done, we consistently run into the reality that relationships are everything. Relationships define every aspect of every single thing I do in my life, and we all do. Because we're not solitary. We exist in communities, and our relationships within those communities are what define our successes in everything, personally and professionally. And the one thing that the best entrepreneurs I know provide is value, and they've recognized over time what their value is for their customer, and they figured out how to communicate that value and how to provide that value in exchange for the things that allows them to live their life, and they're grateful for the opportunity, and they're respectful of their customers, and they're respectful of their craft, and they've come to understand that discipline and relationships are the key to taking whatever art form of success that they have and just maximizing it. So, again, be wary of your choices. Don't make choices that are lacking in discipline because you can. Make the choices that are in with the discipline. If someone's there or not there, because it's just the right thing to do. There's no excuse to do the right thing. The right thing's the right thing. That's it. There's no other reason why you should do the right thing. And there's no reason to justify doing the wrong thing. There's no reason to justify lack of value. There's no reason, situation or anything, where it's acceptable for you to take the same amount of money for a less level of service, for less value from anyone. And there's no justifying the failure of a relationship on the other side if it was you that ended up taking more and more and more and giving less and less and less. You just got to be honest with yourself. You've got to be analytical about your relationships, and you've got to figure that shit out. So, all right, this is Brian Wright. Please follow down there. Hit the subscribe button. Putting out as much content as I can. I really appreciate the support. And this is the Daily B. This is Brian Wright. I am out.